Hi, everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis, a breaking news reporter here at Forbes. Joining me now is retired Rear Admiral Mark Montgomery, a senior director at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Thank you so much for coming back on once again.
Well, thank you for having me today.
We are continuing to see a major escalation in the Middle East, and I think it's important to note exactly where we are right now during this conversation, just because the situation is so fluid. It's around 3 p.m. on Friday afternoon, and we saw overnight Israel launched a series of strikes on Iran's nuclear and military sites, killing Iranian scientists and top military officials. So to start off the conversation, what do you make of the attack?
This is not surprising. I mean, this is really 20 years in the making. Israel has been very concerned about the Iranian nuclear program, not just because of the idea that they have the capability, but Iran has expressed over the years, their leadership has expressed some serious malintent once they get that nuclear capability, that they would use it to exterminate Israel. Their popular slogans in Iran, led by the government, are death to Israel, death to the United States, sometimes death to the United Kingdom if they're mad at them too. But the bottom line is Iran having a nuclear weapon is different than many other states having it, because it's not just that they'd have the capability, but they have an expressed intent to use it proactively. So this is a long time concern for the Israelis in the making. And then the other thing I'd add is President Trump tried hard diplomatically. He's tried. And he said 2 months ago, I'm giving this 2 more months, then you're going to get the stick. And I don't know that Israel understood exactly what he meant, but on day 60 plus about 6 hours, Israel struck. So from my point of view, this was a long time in the making, but the president did give him some short-term warning.
Let's talk about the timing of this attack, because it sounds like you don't think it's coincidence. It comes after multiple rounds of talks between the United States and Iran over a potential nuclear deal. And I want to read something that President Trump posted. He posted this, quote, "I gave Iran chance after chance to make a deal. I told them in the strongest of words to just do it. But no matter how hard they tried, no matter how close they got, they just couldn't get it done." He also added this, quote, "Certain Iranian hardliners spoke bravely, but they didn't know what was about to happen. They are all dead now, and it will only get worse. There's already been great death and destruction, but there is still time to make this slaughter, with the next already planned attacks being even more brutal, come to an end. Iran must make a deal before there is nothing left and save what was once known as the Iranian Empire. No more death, no more destruction. Just do it before it's too late." Is there any indication they are going to come to the table? It's not looking likely because they pulled out of talks this weekend. And what does that too late really mean?
Yeah. And that's a great summary of how we got here. I would add in one more fact, which was that the International Atomic Energy Agency did release reporting, making it clear that Iran was continuing to obfuscate and make it very difficult for them to make accurate assessments. And in fact, they did not feel that Iran had the right, good intent on their nuclear enrichment programs. And I think that's important to Israel as they work with. I mean, they clearly had President Trump's support from their close relationship during the negotiations, but that helps them with the United Kingdom, Germany, others, to show, look, there was a problem developing here. We eliminated it at the most effective time. And you're absolutely right. This is not over. This is a campaign, first of all, from the Israelis. They've made that clear. So it'll be multiple days, and they've done several waves of strikes within this. But in addition, Iran's responding, and there are reports we've heard in the last few hours of ballistic missile attacks into Israel, along with a drone attack last night into Israel from Iran. Those are going to happen. Israel's going to do their best to defeat them with Israeli and U.S. forces involved, and in a defensive mission. But I don't believe that will inhibit the Israeli campaign planning as they go forward over the next few days.
Iran's supreme leader vowed Israel will face a severe punishment. So I want to talk about that response a little bit more, because as you noted, from Iran, we've seen missile and drone strikes launched at Israel. Do you anticipate that this response is going to, pack that punch that Israel's attack did?
No, not the punch that Israel's attack did, but Israel's a democracy, so they work hard to protect all their citizens. Iran is not always attacking uniquely military sites or targets as Israel does. There could be some collateral damage, and look, things will land, weapons will land, or portions of weapons will land. Israelis are at risk. I imagine there've been, that each night there'll be a few hits that come through, and hopefully they're of, generally underpopulated areas. But that's going to happen. In the last attacks in October, it was clear from our observation of the imagery that the Iranians landed quite a few weapons at Navatim Air Base. We'll see what happens this time. So there will be a response, there will be an effect, but I will tell you broadly, Israel will continue to carry out their campaign plan.
And I'm curious, do you think that this means a wider regional war? Because now we're seeing direct back and forth between Israel and Iran. And I don't say this lightly, but if you were on social media last night after these attacks, you saw chatter of World War III. Do you think that these strikes could escalate to a World War III?
So to World War III, no, but a few factors in here. And I don't think Iran will intentionally strike the moderate Arab states, like Saudi Arabia, UAE, United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, Bahrain. However, they could try to strike U.S. forces in those countries. If they do, if there's one way this campaign gets more painful, Iran, it's involve us directly, because we can bring weapons to bear that the Israelis cannot, particularly the B-2 bomber and the massive ordnance penetrator munition it drops. And things can there is a way that things get significantly worse for Iran, and that is to intentionally or unintentionally strike U.S. forces in the Middle East. So I would caution them to be extremely careful in how they handle that. And I don't think they understand President Trump properly if they think at this point striking U.S. forces would do anything other than engender a significant response from him. So that's kind of how I see that playing out.
How likely do you think it would be that Iran goes after U.S. forces? Because Secretary of State Marco Rubio last night, he immediately released a statement distancing the United States from this attack. I want to read it in part. He said this last night, quote, "Tonight, Israel took unilateral action against Iran. We are not involved in strikes against Iran, and our top priority is protecting American forces in the region. Israel advised us that they believe this action was necessary for its self-defense." And then he added this line, quote, "Let me be clear, Iran should not target U.S. interests or personnel." What do you make of his attack, his statement rather, distancing the United States from Israel's attack?
So the conclusion of that is fine. It says, "Don't attack us," implies we'll probably do something to you. I would hope very directly we would do something in response. The first part of his statement's kind of normal diplomatic pablum that is borderline, not true. First of all, Israel used F-35s and F-15s and munitions provided by the United States. We are Israel's ally and partner. We hold these Iranian nuclear developments to be unacceptable. We attempted a diplomatic outreach for decades, but very intensively, President Trump did over 2 months, and he gave the Iranians a deadline. President Trump's Truth Social tweets on this are much more accurate. They depict what the United States has really done and how we really feel.
I wanted to get into that because, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like there's some mixed messaging here between the Secretary of State and the President of the United States based on his tweet or post on Truth Social. Based on what he said to reporters, he told ABC correspondent John Carl that he thought the attacks were excellent and there's more to come, a lot more. What do you make of those two things? Because, those are two different tones there.
Well, this is one of those times when I would tell you to believe what you hear from the president and don't believe what you hear from the bureaucracy. The State Department, Secretary Rubio, that was the bureaucratic response that inevitably comes out of what's called an IPC or Deputies Committee meeting at the White House, where they all agree on some pablum that says it wasn't us. The president said the truth. We back Israel. We support Israel with intelligence. We support Israel with weapon systems. We support Israel with munitions, and we support Israel in this strike. As he said, it was excellent. And I think if you read one more step into it, if you do something to retaliate against us, we will join Israel and strike you even harder.
I'm curious, does this in any way overextend Israel? Because we have seen them involved in multiple wars, multiple conflicts since October 7th, 2023. The IDF is reportedly calling up tens of thousands of soldiers in Israel. What does this do to their capacity?
So listen, Israel has been in significant combat since October 7th. If you ever speak to Israeli officials, they'll tell you a 7 front or 8 front. I don't know how many. They keep making up the numbers, but it's a large scale. They have fights with Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis in Yemen, the IRGs, proxies in Iraq and previously in Syria, and still some in Syria, and then Iran itself. So they did have a multi-front war. They're fighting in Gaza. They have largely kneecapped Hezbollah. Iran's preferred leader, Assad, has been overthrown in Syria. And the Houthis have kind of made a modus vivendi, at least with the United States in the Red Sea. So Iran's on its back foot. So at this moment was the right time to strike. And look, do they have munitions challenges, the Israelis? I assume they do. They've used a lot of munitions. The good news is, with a few exceptions, and they were important, they got what they needed from the Biden administration. Since the Trump administration is coming into place, that's accelerated, and they're getting everything they asked for. So my gut reaction is, can Israel sustain this? Yes. Will they need U.S. support with munitions? Yes. But that's what allies do for each other. We support each other. And I want to be clear here. Israel's not just fighting Iran. Israel's fighting Iran, China, Russia, and North Korea, just like Ukraine is fighting those 4 countries, because North Korea provides things to Iran. Just this week, it was revealed that a Chinese company was providing ballistic missile fueling products to Iran, and Russia supports Iran. So from my perspective, Israel is carrying forward the fight of all democracies against these autocracies, and they should and will get U.S. support.
And I think that's a really important point that could be missed in conversations when it comes to this strike in particular. So can you dive a little deeper in there? I mean, is Iran going to see immediate support from China, from Russia right now?
They will see support. They'll see military, economic, and diplomatic support. What they won't see is game-changing support, because those countries can't provide it. And I think when the president sees it, he'll hold those countries. As he does his sanction regimes, he'll consider those countries for increased sanctions if that's possible. I think only China would really be susceptible to that. My point is, yes, they have to fight those countries, Israel. Yes, Iraners will take support from their 3 transactional partners in the axis of aggressors. No, I don't think it'll make a difference. The one thing I hope happens is that President Trump sees this and begins to make the connection with Ukraine and Russia. The Ukraine is fighting these same 4 countries. And at some point, the United States, as the most populous, powerful democracy ever, with its powerful president, seeks to hold Russia accountable as Israel is holding Iran accountable.
And Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that Israel will continue to fight for as many days as it takes. What is the end goal there? I mean, what are they fighting until?
So they're fighting to set back, Israel is fighting to set back the Iranian nuclear program in a significant fashion, not months, but years. And the way they've done that is they're attacking the enrichment facilities, the stowage facilities, the ballistic missile production facilities, the engineers and scientists who lead those programs. And I think they've probably killed 50% of what we would assess as the leading scientists and engineers on those programs. And then the military leaders who authorize its use and the use of terrorist forces. So both the Iranian military leader, but also Quds Force, or Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps leaders. And they've killed 4 or 5 of their most senior officials between those 2 groups. So this is a significant strike on the systems, the assets, the buildings, and the people who develop the Iranian and employ the Iranian nuclear program.
To that point, it's a significant strike. I mean, does it completely kneecap Iran's nuclear program? What do you make of that?
Well, that's why you run a campaign. I have no idea if last night's, I have not access to the battle damage assessment. The Israelis may not even complete with that. My guess is they know what they need to some of the things they need to restrike right away on initial reports, and some they'll have to do deeper, scientific assessment. But they'll need to restrike sites. They'll need to restrike facilities to ensure that they have knocked it back as far as they can with the munitions they have. Again, should Iran accidentally invite the United States to this party, by attacking our forces, I think Israel will gladly pass on to us their assessment of the battle damage, and will complete the job with the massive ordnance penetrators.
I want to get to a point you made earlier, is that Israel's really firing on all cylinders right now. They are engaged in a multi-front war. How does this recent strike shake up all of those conflicts, and what are you looking out for next?
So look, I think the Hezbollah conflict's at a status quo that Israel's very comfortable with. Hezbollah has indicated they really don't want a part of this last thing. Syria's regime change has taken place. I don't think they're looking for a part of this. Look, this could inflame things with the Houthis. There's no doubt about that. And Israel will have to hit the Houthis in their Yemen hideouts again and again and again. But this is the long-term fight for Israel. Look, this is a campaign like this is not easy. They're a small country. They're a 9 million person country with a good GDP, but not a very, very, very small GDP relative to the United States. That's close to the size of the economy. And therefore, these kind of sustained combat missions, they're very hard on any country. They're exceptionally hard on a democracy like Israel. And so there is a limit to what they can do, but they're nowhere near that right now. And frankly, they've been waiting for this. If you were to poll Israeli population support for this Operation Rising Lion, I think you would find extremely strong domestic support, because the people are tired of the saber rattling and threats from Iran. Because what Iran threatens is the extermination of the Jewish state. And that is just unacceptable to the people of Israel.
Well, as I said at the top of this conversation, it's certainly a fluid, developing situation. And as we see more over the weekend and beyond, I hope you come back on and join me for more conversations. Rear Admiral, thank you so much for joining me. You're welcome back anytime.
Thank you for having me again.